next panel brings together the Ministry of Labor and Employment, state government officials across states, and representatives from global institutions to collectively explore the next frontliner of labor welfare delivery in India. Intersection works to ensure that workers can easily access the welfare benefit they are entitled to.
To deliver the opening address, it is my honor to introduce Ms. Michiko Miyamoto, Director of the ILO Decent Work Technical Support Team for South Asia and Country Office for India. With over 3 decades of experience in international development, Ms. Miyamoto has worked across ILO headquarters and the regional office for Asia Pacific, specializing in small business development, job creation, and workforce capacity building. Since taking charge of the ILO India office in November 2023, she has been at the forefront of advancing decent work for gig workers, informal labor, and care economy workers across South Asia. Ms. Miyamoto, we warmly welcome you at the stage.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and it is absolutely a pleasure to be here. I would like to congratulate the organizer for quite an informative panels that touching upon so many real issues. And even just listening to the last panel discussion, I feel the passion coming through everyone participating in this panel. So I am a director of ILO International Labor Organization. I'm a director of India office. And as an ILO International Labor Organization, for those participants who are not familiar with ILO, so ILO is an institution with the governance of 3 parties to decide on the labor standard. So one party is the government as a regulator, authority for compliance, creating rules, and monitoring implementations. And then we have a business side, employers and business bodies representing each countries. And then workers side, trade union, national trade union counterparts who equally participate through parties. So that's the governance structure to decide what will be the minimum labor standards. And I'm just explaining to you in connection to social protection, right? So ILO's one of the responsibility for the past 100 years or so is to agree on the terms, understanding, definition on certain subject, and agree on what is the minimum things that we need to look into, right? So when it comes to social protection, we have a convention, which is a legal instrument, Convention 102 on social protection, which defines the 9 branches of social protection. Now, what does it include? That includes medical care, and then sickness coverage, old wage benefits, employment injury, unemployment insurance, family benefits, maternity, and coverage for disability, and also survivors' benefits. So these are the 9 categories of social protection internationally defined. So that is used as an international benchmark when we look at the country's coverage, which part is covered enough or not enough in that sense. And then second part that we do in ILO's work, which is very much linked to today's discussion, is the data monitoring, right? So there's a SDG goals on 1.3, which link to social protection. So ILO is a global custodian agency to monitor global achievement under these indicators. So, which means that we will use publicly available data and documents to update the coverage of these, covering these 9 branches that I explained, to update World Social Report. And the next one is coming 2027. So we are in the process of updating that data, including India. And I can probably touch upon a little bit if there's a panel discussion. And then another thing I needed to add from global perspective. So ILO is also, I mentioned about convention as a legal instrument, right? So which means if India agrees to ratify, it is legally bounded. And there is a format of a guideline called recommendation. And ILO also produced recommendation number 202 on social protection floor. And I'm just explaining briefly what it means. It means that we have a life cycle of you born, and then you are a child to be protected, educated, and then going into the workforce. You might have maternity, and then you might have sickness or injury or unemployment. And by the time you reach to old age pension, ideally, all this process should be covered at some stage, right? So we call it the flow approach, not just the one targeted group, but overall population should be covered throughout the life cycle of stage. And then also looking at the government program. Many countries have very good poverty alleviation program, really focusing on poverty group, right, under the poverty line. But many countries sometimes lack somewhere in between, because not everyone just above the poverty level are well off. For example, if you are underemployed, then maybe the income is not enough to support yourself and your families, and that also happens. And sometimes some countries categorize like working poor. You work, but not enough, and need some protection or social assistance or social insurance scheme. So those categories, whoever in that income level, hopefully there's a floor, minimum floor that many, or majority of the workforce can be above the floor. So that is the concept of ILO's social protection floor recommendation. So these are the main things that the ILO does. And in case of India, we have a very interesting scheme, quite innovative ones, looking at different states. And that really fascinated me, because I was looking at the central government scheme, and then, of course, there's very much separate state-owned schemes and governance in that mechanism. So what we're doing now, we just had a team of social protection statisticians looking at the different data sets to update India's data. And I just mentioned that everyone should be covered, right? But at the same time, we have to ensure that not the same person is getting different benefits from different schemes, or I would say not to be double counted when we count the coverage of who are the beneficiary of the schemes. So it's a very insightful exercise for ILO office as well. And hopefully, we complete this exercise looking at different states and the central scheme, how each state and the central government monitor the scheme. Because, as you know, Code of Social Security is notified in November 2025, and it is considered as a very significant change to include, of course, gig and platform workers, but all unorganized workers under the statutory beneficiaries, right? So the legal structure, international benchmark and legal structure has to be there. But of course, then when it comes to implementation, that's where I think everyone's focus need to be. And in that sense, we're very committed to support any implementation stage, so that the actual implementation, monitoring, who's actually getting the data can be transparently available for all the, well, first of all, policymakers, so we can actually see the gaps and therefore can improve the remedies or improvement, so to speak. Because no schemes in the world is perfect when we roll out. our duty is to look at what is working and what is difficult, and then try to find a solution collectively to benefit as many citizens as possible. So with that, I would like to conclude my initial remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Miyamoto. I would request you to take the seat on the stage. Yeah. It is now my pleasure to introduce the panelist. Moderating this conversation is Ms. Musa Dalal, Senior Economist at the World Bank, a PhD economist from the Paris School of Economics. Ms. Dalal leads the World Bank's social protection and labor work in South Asia. Her research focuses on informality, economic inclusion, and building climate-responsive welfare system for the poor and vulnerable. She has worked across MENA and South Asia and brings a rigorous analytical lens to the complex challenge of translating policy intent into worker outcomes. Ms. Dalal, I request you to come on the stage. Yeah. Next, we welcome Shri Kunal Silku, Special Secretary for Labor Department, Uttar Pradesh. He has led transformative work in skill development and employment in India's most populous state. As Mission Director of the Uttar Pradesh Skill Development Mission, he oversaw a major expansion of youth employment, including international placements, and has consistently championed the use of technology to bridge the gap between workers and opportunity. Sir, I would request you to come on the stage. Yeah.
Now we welcome Mr. Shri M.V. Seshagiri Babu, Secretary Labor, Factories, Boiler and Insurance Medical Services, Government of Andhra Pradesh. He is widely recognized for leading the emergency power restoration after Cyclone Hudhud in 2014, one of Andhra Pradesh's largest infrastructure recovery operations. In this current role, he is driving some of the state's most exciting labor welfare innovations, including the Integrated Labor Amenities Complex. Shri Seshagiri Babu, sir, will join us online. Joining us from Karnataka, Dr. Manjunath Gangadhar, Additional Labor Commissioner for Industrial Relations, Government of Karnataka. His expertise spans industrial relations, labor law, social security, informal labor, corporate social responsibility, and workplace gender justice. He brings to this panel both legal rigor and on-the-ground experience of building gig and platform workers' protections. A warm welcome, Dr. Manjunath.
Ms. Dalal, we hand the session.
Well, thank you so much for the really nice introductions. I'm very honored to be part of this panel and to moderate the panel. I know that we stand between you and the end of the day. Oh, okay. All right. Then you want to introduce me now? Okay. One last introduction as well.
So I would like to welcome Ms. Savita Mishra, ma'am, who had working with the Labor Department for the past 36 years in Chhattisgarh. She has been very much interested in the tech innovation and had been working in the head of department of Chhattisgarh for the past 6 years. So I hand it over to you.
All right. So we'll start off with a few questions. Maybe we'll take one. I'll do one round, and then if there is time, we'll take also from the audience. You might be a bit tired, but we hope we translate a lot of the things that we've heard today to a bit more practice, and as we have all the policymakers and practitioners on the ground. So the first question is actually to Mr. Seshagiri. I really apologize if I'm not pronouncing the names correctly. Mr. Seshagiri is online, and he's actually the secretary in Andhra Pradesh. So, Mr. Seshagiri, we just heard about the ILACs, or the labor, I think the Integrated Labor Administration, is it a center the ILACs basically. And these, we've heard earlier in the morning a lot about digital. In a way, this is actually going the extra mile while having implemented the digital or thinking about the digital, but this is the digital plus touch. I guess these centers are working to resolve some of the last mile issues. So we want to hear from you a little bit about how did this initiative start and what kind of sort of key bottlenecks are you trying to resolve with the creation of these centers on the ground? Over to you.
Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes. Also, just to say that I think Mr. Seshagiri is a little bit under the weather, so he's really giving us the courtesy of his time to be with us today. So please, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. One of the challenges that we have identified is that workers, mostly construction workers, they assemble at the labor areas. These are the spaces where they assemble and they disperse for the construction sites and work sites. We also identified that they would be waiting there, and some of them would probably not be getting any work on a particular day, depending upon the market demands. So, after having identified and done a needs analysis, we basically came up with the idea of the labor amenities complex, integrated labor amenities complex, which is basically a worker first one-stop access center that brings multiple government services together in a single physical space. Now, what does this mean? Basically, at the most basic level, it is the waiting area is provided with some shade, drinking water, sanitation, and some affordable meals through our Anna Canteens program. It's a flagship program of the government of Andhra Pradesh. But beyond amenities, the idea is to convert the waiting time into productive engagement. So, the idea is to not only provide the basic sink services with the support of the local workers, also to ensure that for the worker's life cycle approach, that is, all his individual needs for himself and his family are taken care of and attended to from this single node. So, and integrated resource scheduling at the node point itself, that is at the ILAC prefabricated structure, which has been, all these services will be extended. Now, what does this imply? They would be providing all kinds of registration services to the workers for various schemes, programs, and their other socio-economic needs. We would also be provided through this single node all their educational needs. The educational needs for themselves and their family, their dependents, then the job matching, health-related support services, the civil supplies, and converge into this single nodal point. A shift from a fragmented scheme-based administration towards an integrated.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seshagiri. So I don't know if I'll just scoot a little bit closer. Maybe we can just follow up with another small question also, Mr. Seshagiri, because I know you cannot stay with us, maybe perhaps for the full session. But currently, what is the number of ILACs that are available that you have constructed, and what's the ambition for it in the future in terms of numbers? And also, how many sort of people do you aim to really help with these centers in the next few years? Similarly, and perhaps equally importantly, you talked about this being a sort of a one-stop shop, right? It's a kind of the first touch point that actually workers can come to, and they register, they understand what type of schemes they're eligible for, they get a bit of job matching. What are the type of coordination that you currently have with other departments and that need to also be part of that center to provide that broader service? Over to you.
We have floated a tender for providing these ILATs or integrated labor amenities prefab structures at 25 locations. The tender process is underway. We plan to expand and ensure that all the most of the labor address are covered. At least 50 or more workers are congregating or assembling at those locations. But we tend to, one point I wish to make is we are trying to basically plan both a hub and spoke model and a lag model, which is a bit of a complex proposition, which probably time will not to explain. It is one centralized approach and a decentralized approach both together to ensure that the convergence model where departments like the health department, the food security, housing, skill, stability, and financial inclusion, all the various sub-subjects and subsystems are attended to and taken care. There is a portal called Naipunyam portal, which is a skill development portal, which basically which maps the demand and supply, where the construction spaces want workers, demand for workers, that will be also be mapped and matched, and the workers will provide the necessary information. The most important point is these workers will also have access to digital information of the various kinds of skill development programs, the various subsidy programs. Then not only that, they would also be taken to construction sites. If they are not having any work on a particular day, they would be taken to construction sites and given exposure to construction methods, and also ensure that they learn and reskill and upskill themselves for better productivity. Worker databases and integrated service delivery systems, so that workers do not repeatedly submit the same information across departments. We believe that this model can serve as a scalable framework for labor service welfare. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll move over to Mr. Kunal. The questions that we have for Mr. Kunal are mostly about the builders and construction workers welfare boards, but anybody else who has any questions beyond that is also, he's free to talk to us. So Mr. Kunal, I want to understand from you. So UP is one of the states that has quite a few construction workers and quite a few migrant workers as well. And one of potentially some of the issues that they face is how to reach them, how to register them, especially that they are migrants, and the portability of benefits that may or may not exist easily for construction workers. So my question to you is, how is the BOCW in UP today assisting sort of to reach those workers? What are the efforts and the sort of the outcomes that you have seen on trying to improve registration, intake and registration, so that benefits can be delivered to people?
Thank you so much, ma'am. And you were exactly accurate in pointing out that UP has got unique challenge. UP, as we all know that UP is the populous state of India, and it has one of the largest labor population. But we have a unique situation in which UP is an out-migration state. So most of the many of the skilled laborers who are basically from UP, they migrate out and they work in different states like Maharashtra, like Karnataka, like Gujarat, like Tamil Nadu, even Punjab, so and so forth. There is a challenge has been felt because all the BOC boards, they have been formed by the Central Act, and they are right now registering only the workers from their state. The worker has to be a domicile from that state. So suppose if any worker who is from Punjab and that worker is working in Uttar Pradesh, so currently UP BOCW board is not registering that worker. And since that worker is not being registered by UP BOCW board, then any kind of benefits is also not being given by UP board. Ideally, it is assumed that it will be the Punjab's BOCW board which will register that worker, and in case of any necessity or need, the worker will apply for benefits in the Punjab board, and the Punjab government will be doing verifications and handling out the benefits. It is much easier said than done, Because for any local worker, it is much easy to apply for benefits, and also easy for the officials to actually go and verify. But the moment we talk about across state thing, this becomes a very big challenge. And in practicality, right now, all those workers who are not working in their own state, they are finding it very difficult to get any kind of benefits. So this need was understood by Government of India, and this across boards portability, now it has been mooted at the GOI level, because it has to be a GOI initiative only. No state can itself do it. So now at the GOI level, what they are trying to do, they are trying to integrate all the BOCW boards. And now what they are doing is that suppose if a worker is from UP, but that worker is actually working in Maharashtra, then the worker, it will be a unified database of all the workers, because all the boards will be connected. And the UP worker working in Maharashtra can apply for the benefits from the Maharashtrian BOCW board, and they will also be given the benefits from Maharashtra board only. At the back end, the financial implication of that benefit will be transferred out from the UP BOCW cess fund board to the Maharashtra BOCW cess fund board. So it will be a back-end transfer of the funds, but the benefits will be given locally by the Maharashtra board to the UP worker, and vice versa. A Maharashtra worker working in UP will be able to apply benefits here and get benefits from here, and we will get the funds from Maharashtra government at a later date. So this is still under consideration. It has not come into effect, but I am pretty sure that once this model is actually in place, then this cross mobility and this cross migration issues will be completely resolved. So this is one. This was one of your question. The another question was that how are we actually trying to improve on the registration aspect? So as we again know that UP is not a very it's not a very educated state, and still the education levels and especially the digital literacy of the workers are not very great. So we can keep on making all registration portals and all apps and those kinds of things. But it is very far-fetched to think that the workers will be having a smartphone, or they will be having access to these internet points where they can themselves go and do all those things. So in UP we have a unique system called CSCs. They are the common service centers. So we have these common service centers at each Gram Panchayat level. So these CSCs are basically a digital data point, and there a digital literate entrepreneur sits, and he basically undertakes the registration work of beneficiaries of all the departments, not just labor department, be it health department, be it education department, be it social security, any department. So all those departments registration work is been undertaken by the CSC. It's a physical brick and mortar place located in each Gram Panchayat. So the worker only needs to go there and tell that, okay, I am a worker and I need to register myself. So all his filling of the forms and data entries, uploading the documents, all those things will be done by the CSC supervisor. So this is the mechanism of registration which we apply. But still, the worker need to know that, okay, there is some kind of scheme and I need to visit to CSC and get myself registered. So for this extension activity also, this is done by our labor department, our LEOs, our DLCs, our ALCs. We have DLC, Deputy Labor Commissioner at Mandal level. Mandal is the combination of 3-4 districts. Then we have Assistant Labor Commissioner at the district level, and then we have LEO, mostly at the Tehsil or block level. So these are the people who organize various kinds of camps. These camps are focused on labor addas or those sites where there is large congregation of workers, and there they are told that, okay, since you are a worker, there's a cess board and there's a BSW board and so many activities are there. You get all these different kinds of benefits like health benefit, maternity benefit, death benefits, pension benefits, education. You name any kind of thing, and I'm pretty sure that BOC board will be having some or the other scheme for that kind of social security net, which we are trying to extend to the workers. I'm very proud to say that UP BOCW board is a pretty rich board, and our platter of services and the schemes is also very rich. And I don't think that we have left any stone unturned. In fact, this was one of the prime reason for also inducting Indus action. And we also asked them to, reach out to all different modes and see that if we have actually missed out on any scheme. So we are willing to implement those schemes also. So this is how we do the extension activity, and this is how we do the registration. And once the person is registered, he also knows which all schemes he is eligible for. When he meets those criteria, suppose there's a benefit for the birth of a child. So when the birth of child happens, then that again that labor visits the CSC center. He tells it in physical form, and the CSC operator will upload his form for the birth assistance, and then our LEOs will do a field verification. They will do a sort of verification, and then it's done on the portal, and a DBT has been done. So our entire mechanism runs on portal, but we don't expect the end worker to actually use the portal for registrations or for applying for the schemes. It is done by Jan Suvidha Kendra, we call it in Hindi, CSC, we call it in English. But all the benefits are given by DBT. So there is no any intermediary in between. It is directly the BSW office in Lucknow and directly the account number of the worker. So all the assistance is transferred directly from that place to the worker's account. So this is how we do things in UP.
Great, thank you so much. I have another question for you, but I will move to Mr. Manjunath first, and then I might come back to you, Mr. Kunal, okay? I think we still have a bit of time left for the session. So, Mr. Manjunath, Karnataka has been a pioneer when it comes to thinking about what to provide for gig and platform workers. It has been thinking about this before the labor codes came in November, and this has been in the works for a while. So can you tell us a little bit, you have been part of that for a really long time as well. First of all, why did you start thinking about the gig and platform workers when you first did? And then now that you have the board and we have the new codes, how are you thinking about aligning to these codes and the coordination between the center and the state on this relatively new and dicey agenda?
Thank you, Dr. Musa. There are two parts in your question. The first is how did the government of Karnataka came up with this gig workers welfare board, the act and the rules. It has a lot of political patronage and political will to bring this law in the state of Karnataka. It all started with Bharat Jodo Yatra undertaken by Shri Rahul Gandhiji, where he met a lot of gig workers when he traveled across the country. So it is when he came to Karnataka that the political leadership, the Congress leadership, thought that they understood the precarious nature of jobs that these gig workers do. So they thought that we should have a state-specific legislation. That is how this all started 2.5 years ago. And that is how the government of Karnataka wanted to bring in a new legislation. The codes, the Social Security Code, which came into effect only from 21/11/2025, it is of late. But Karnataka had passed the state law and the rules, and the board was constituted much ahead of the coming into force of the Social Security Code. So basically what we thought was we did a lot of research. We had partnered with the National Law School and various other research agencies and all the platforms. Of course, ILO was also the part of our discussions for pre-legislative discussions. We had more than 35 rounds of discussions with the platforms and aggregators. So we understood what exactly is their issues, and we had a lot of discussions with the platform organizations. There were a couple of unions which work with gig and platform workers. So we had a lot of understanding. We looked into the research. We looked into the law passed by the Spain. We looked into the law passed by Singapore. And of course, we also looked into the Social Security Code, what exactly it spoke about the gig workers. There was a lot of differences between what Karnataka state has done and what is envisaged in Social Security Code. Social Security Code regarding gig workers only talks about the contribution and the schemes to be designed. It doesn't talk about the overall welfare. It doesn't talk about overall working conditions of the gig workers, which this law envisages. So the differences is about not only the collection of the cess, they talk about contribution on the annual turnover, we talk about welfare fee. So everyone in this room understands that labor is in the concurrent list. So both the central government and the state government has powers to frame legislation. Now, the only thing is the Social Security Code 114, Section 114, also has a proviso which says that the platforms and aggregators need not necessarily pay the contribution if they apply to the Government of India and take exemptions. So platforms are at liberty under Section 114 to take exemption from Government of India from not paying the contribution under the Social Security Code. That's a very important enabled provision under the Social Security Code itself. See, this is very important because in 2020, when the Social Security Code was brought into force, perhaps the lawmakers did not really understood the way in which it has to be implemented. I'll give an example. Suppose there is a road accident in Bangalore city, assuming that there is a gig worker has met with a fatal accident. How can the National Social Security Board, centralized sitting in Delhi, understand that there was an accident, and how do they contribute, and how do they collect the fees, and how do they ensure that it has to be paid to the worker working in Bangalore? There are a lot of difficulties. Already many southern states are facing challenges with the financial powers to be given to the state governments. So this unification or this centralization of contribution doesn't really work when it comes to gig workers. Gig workers work in a specific state. That is why many states are coming up with the Gig Workers Act and rules. Bihar has now, Jharkhand has, and many states have come forward because it should be, the labor should be with the state. So it's better that state enforces the social security for the gig workers as we are doing with the BOCW. I think this is our concern. And in Karnataka, we have moved. The board has been constituted. The act and rules are there. The software is ready. So the platforms have registered with us. So far, we had the database of around 12.5 lakh gig workers registered. Of course, there must be overlapping because the gig workers might have been working with multiple platforms. We know that. So if we clean the data, we'll have specific data about the actual gig workers working in the state of Karnataka. And now the next board would design the schemes. We all know the 9 pillars of social security which ILO envisages. So we are into that, and maybe we will try to pay attention, and we also know what aggregators want. We also know what gig workers want in terms of social security. We have understood the mistakes done by BOCW. We don't want to commit those mistakes. We have learned those mistakes from the BOCW. I was also a CEO of the BOCW board. So this board is very unique and outstanding. It's a new form of employment. It's a new workforce, and we need to understand their requirement and their necessities and their need-based social security. And that is what we are trying to do in the state of Karnataka. Thank you.
So let me then bite on the last thing that you said, which is you have learned a lot from some of how some of the benefits and the registration and issues that you faced at BOCW, and tried not to, I suppose, repeat some of those mistakes. So can you highlight what are some of those that you think, these lessons that you have learned from BOCW that have translated into a potentially better design for the gig and platform workers?
Yeah, basically, what happened with BOCW was the influx of the cess amount. So we did not really anticipate that there would be influx of cess amount. And the registration process under BOCW is entirely different. Whereas in the law that we have designed for the gig economy, gig workers, the gig workers will not register with us. Already the data is with the platforms. Platforms have the data. So each platform have to integrate with the portal designed by the government of Karnataka. So the data transformation from the platforms would directly come to the board. So we did not really ask gig workers to come and register. So registration was a great difficulty under BOCW. So we did not wanted gig workers to come to the board and register. We wanted simply ask the platforms to push that data to the board so that we have the data for all gig workers who are actually functioning and who are active on the platforms. That is one. Second, platforms, during the discourse, during the discussions, they were telling look, you had so much of resources in the BOCW, but there wasn't schemes and things like that. We understood that, and we told them that there is going to be a lot of transparency. There is, in fact, the board also has members of the platforms. So platforms themselves are sitting in the board, and the trade unions, gig trade unions are also in the board. It is the board which is going to decide the type of schemes. So that transparency has been given, and we have very active platforms who are there in the board. And that board, the platforms themselves, they are going to design the schemes which is good for their own gig workers. So these are some of the lessons which we have learned. And basically, since gig economy or gig workers is maybe it's not a long-term career for gig workers. So that also is in our mind, because a gig worker today might not be a gig worker day after. So you may leave the jobs and you may look for a better future in coming years. So that is also a very, very important thing, thinking in our mind. So what we want to do is, what is most important for the gig worker who is on the street is, what would happen to me the next moment? Whether I'm going to meet with an accident, whether a fatal accident happens to me, whether I'm going to get injured. So in that case, what is that the board should do? How do we take care that is keeping alive and it is not thinking about pensions after 60 years and all. So pensionary schemes should never be in our thought. So that is what we are thinking. So we are asking the platforms themselves, we are asking the gig workers, what exactly you want? So the immediate reaction is, sir, I'm afraid about my ride. Well, I may meet with a fatal accident, and what would happen to my family? Or I may get physically disabled for life. So disabled pension should be one of the most important criteria. So these are the thinking that we are having in the board, so that there is a lot of transparency, and it is all need-based social security systems that we want to design.
Last question on my side, and then I will open it up, is for Mr. Kunal. So you mentioned that BOCW and UP is very rich, right? And one of the things that you are probably thinking about is how to ensure what is the framework for higher cess utilization rates. And so what are you thinking to improve the utilization of the cess rates and the collection that you have? Are there any specific schemes that you think should be increased? Is it an issue, for example, of getting people more aware about the benefits to increase the benefit utilization? Where do you think it should go? Let's say top 3 priorities to improve that.
Ma'am, as you know, the BOC Board Act itself mandates that every construction activity going in the state, the 1% of the cost of construction will be going into the cess board as cess, as labor cess. So we have, pretty big government projects of like thousands of crores, hundreds of crores, roads, big dams, big institutions running up to hundreds of crores. So UP gets a very nice money as the cess fund. Right now, we have a corpus of around 11,000 crores, which is there in the UP cess, UP BOCW board. But along with this, this is also a figure that this board started in 2009, and from that day up till today, there has been registration of around 1.8 crore workers. So even, the workers also registered in a very, very large number. Obviously, it is the cumulative registration from 2009 to the 2026. It's not the current figure. The current live workers are around 20 lakhs, as has been told by my colleague also, that, these kind of workers are transitory in nature. Sometimes you are a construction worker or laborer, then you, move to some other kind of work, and then you stop being a construction worker. And plus, in BOC board, we also have a mechanism for annual renewal. So many a times it also happens that, the person got registered himself in a particular year, but then he did not renew himself later. So right now we have around 20-25 lakh of active workers with a cumulative registration of 1.8 crores. Now coming to the utilization and the schemes aspect. So as I told you earlier also, that BOCW board has thought across all possible avenues which are there, in which a sort of hand holding or sort of assistance is required. be it educational assistance. We provide assistance to the children of our workers, right from primary education to secondary to even to higher educations, and even for the technical education courses, like if he goes for medical or engineering. So it's a completely subsidized scholarship model from starting to end. End-to-end education coverage is there. Then we have the entire health coverage. In the health coverage, as you know, Ayushman scheme was launched in the entire country, in which 5 lakh rupees insurance was given to any citizen of the country. And for our BOCW workers, it is the premium is paid by the cess fund, from the cess fund. So no worker has to actually pay this health premium, and every worker is covered by this 5 lakh rupees health insurance scheme which is there. Then we have other schemes for accidental death or disability. All those things are also there. Then we also have pension schemes, that if a person remains in as construction worker for 10 years, then he is eligible for pension, and obviously he will get the pension after 60 years of age, but his eligibility is determined by just completing 10 years in the board as a construction workers. Then we have a lot of women-centric schemes. We have maternity benefits we give them extra pay, we give them leave, the loss in wages we provide to them. We have special assistance for birth of girl child. Obviously, on the birth of boy child also we provide assistance, but the assistance is more in case of birth of a girl child. We provide assistance for the marriage of the girl child. We don't provide assistance for the marriage of boy child, but we provide assistance for marriage of girl child. It's called Kanya Vivaha Yojana. So, and then we are also associating with lots of NGOs, and having dialogue with different workers, organizations, unions. We're trying to understand that, what is their requirement, what else what we can do, what are the other boards which they are trying to do and which we can replicate. So right now also with Indus Action we are working on 3 new schemes. So one is regarding this sanitary hygiene aspect. We want to do something more than what the health department is doing. And then we also want to extend our educational assistance to the coachings also. Because right now we are giving them assistance when they get into a college, but we don't have any assistance for actually preparing the kids for getting into some job or getting into some kind of good colleges. So that is one sector which we are again trying to explore. We explored this free bus scheme, but then we realized that in UP there is not much demand for this free bus, so we have dropped this idea. So we are trying to have a continuous discourse with all these associations. And obviously in BOC board also, as is told by my colleague, just like gig worker, in BOC board also it is these labor organizations who are a member of the board, and it is the board who formulates the schemes. So board has full ownership and full accountability towards all the schemes. We want to put up all the schemes in online mode, be transparent, DBT manner. But simultaneously, there is also a push towards doing something populist. Many times we want to, just transfer 1,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees to account of every worker. So those are the kind of, things which we try to resist. Because we want that, we should be intervening in such a manner which actually enables the worker to earn his livelihood. It should upskill the labor. It should provide, social assistance, social security to the labor. It should not be like some kind of berojgari, unemployment allowance kind of thing that, okay, you will be getting this kind of fixed money every day. So now it has become very common in India, and, lots of governments and lots of schemes are being announced, especially targeting women, Maiya Yojana, and so lots of Yojanas, which fixed DBT is being done. So we also keep getting this kind of pressure, and, 11,000 crores is like nothing. If you divide by 20 lakh workers per head, amount is like nothing. It will be peanuts. It will be, used away in a whisker. So we try to resist those kind of, pressures and those kinds of things. And we want to actually utilize these money in a manner in which, which enables and builds the entire workforce of the UP.
What a great way to end my questions. So I want to open it up for questions from the audience. I know everybody's a little bit tired, but please, if you have any questions, raise your hands and feel free to ask.
Hello, my name is Vani. I work with an NGO called Anandi in Gujarat. My question is specifically to you, Kunal sir, and others can also respond. I think earlier, since the morning, we've been talking about how digitization of different kinds or different, I mean, I think in the session that was just before yours, I think a lot of the workers spoke about how there are different seemingly small requirements that actually make accessing different entitlements harder. So it can be, and I work with migrant workers as well in Gujarat. A lot of who are, registered in BOCW. Things like, small things like, registration year after year, renewing that, or, there is one set of measures for getting a card and then another set of measures for applying for different schemes, things like that, that make the process harder for the migrant worker, because the migrant worker anyway is in a precarious state of being anyway. So with that in mind, and I think some of the speakers in the sessions earlier were also talking about how what can be done to not make the system so brutal that they make it harder for those people that they're meant for. So my question, I guess, is what do you think of in terms of fluidity that can be introduced to accessing entitlements under BOCW or even under gigs welfare board that can while not opening the floodgates to just anything goes, but also kind of makes it more accessible for the workers. And that's my question.
Thank you for your question. It's a very pertinent question, and this is the question which we deal on a daily basis, and we also try to find some magic solution to it. Unfortunately, no such solution exists, because workers will have their own aspirations and their thought process. As officers, there are from our side our responsibility and accountability. So in UP, we have tried to address this thing. We have tried to meet in the middle, all right, because it also can't happen that as you told only that we can't open the floodgates without having any checks and balances, that anybody can come and without any kind of much inquiry or any kind of requirement of any kind of proofs or submissions we can provide the assistance. Like suppose I'll give an example. Suppose your child is getting suppose you're asking assistance for marriage of your child, then you need to have at least a child. You can't ask for marriage assistance without having a child, and then the child should be marriageable age. You can't ask for assistance if the child is 10 years of age. And then the marriage should be happening. It can't happen that, the child is sitting at home and you are applying for the marriage of the child. So, but these things can only be verified on field. So if we don't do this verification, then you can understand that, we can ask the worker not to provide these 3 details. But then if you will not provide these 3 details, then how are you actually going to see that, the internet benefit is being done? So at times we have to draw a line. So in UP, what we have done is that we have kept the registrations free and open. We don't check anything when a worker registers himself. Obviously, there is a requirement that, the worker should have worked at least 90 days in the previous financial year to register himself as a BOCW board construction workers, and need to pay a 50 rupees registration fees. But, we accept a handwritten simple on a white page that I have worked in 90 days in last financial year. We don't ask him to produce any kind of proof, Even me and you can write, plain letter saying that, I have been working as a construction worker in past 10 years, and when you will get yourself registered as a BOC worker in UP. So we have kept the registration process very simple. Then comes the second stage, when, when the person needs to apply for a particular scheme. Then we have tried to minimize the requirement to the minimum requirement which is there for that scheme. That is why, again, it is not a universal thing. Because if you are seeking for a health benefit or a disability benefit, you will be requiring some other kind of document which you have to produce. If you are applying for an educational benefit, then some other requirement is there. But we have tried to reduce and keep the requirement only to the basic minimum requirement. And that is for this reason only we have also employed the help of various NGOs. Indus Action is one of the NGO who is working with us, who is organizing this event also. And this is one of their job roles, in which we have asked them to actually study our entire requirements and see if we can even cut it shorter. That it should be the basic minimum requirement is there. And then once you apply for a job, it is only at that stage we do a verification. That okay, whether you are a worker or not, whether you fulfill those criteria or not. And then if you fulfill, your application is approved online, and then a DBT is done directly to your account. Because we don't deal in any kind of distribution of items, we don't deal in any kind of distribution of checks. All our schemes are DBT. The moment you are eligible, we provide a DBT facility to your account. Be it any kind of schemes, ultimately down the line you get money in your account. So this is there. So we have tried to simplify things, but as you are rightly said, still, the forms tend to get a bit cumbersome. There has to be some fields which have to be filled. Even if the person goes to Jan Suvidha Kendra, the CSCs, he himself is not able to fill it, he goes to CSC. The CSC person asks him that, okay, produce these kind of documents. Because suppose for the birth, he will ask, provide the birth certificate. Now suppose, your child is 20 years of age and you have not prepared your birth certificate. So now there is another challenge that now you go to the block office, the Tehsil office, and for the municipality office and get first the birth certificate made, because you are not simply write and say that, okay, my child is 20 years old and she was born on such and such date. So these are the challenges. But if we don't ask, then as you can see that there will be like endless amounts of wrong applications. Maybe one right will come and 20 wrong applications will come. How will we check? So there's a fine line between making things simpler and also ensuring accountability. So we keep on working every day. But as I said in the earlier statement, it's a day in day out work and challenge for us, and there's no magic answer to it. But we work with our full intention and with our full honesty that we try to work for the workers.
Did you want to say something, Mr. Manjunath?
Yeah, gig worker verification is very simple, because all gig workers would have given the data to the platforms. Minimum data, their name, their address, their bank account, and other particulars, including their others numbers. So those are the data which we may seek from the platforms. So we will not do any verification, because already they have registered with the platform. So that process is very, very easy. Verification is not required because we give them the unique IDs. Once the data is pushed to the board's portal, we will give a unique ID for the gig worker. Assuming gig worker A works across various platforms, but still he has a unique ID. So the board is able to track him wherever he is working and things like that. And since all the gig workers, 100% of them are digitally literate, it is very easy for us to tell them the schemes, their eligibility criteria, everything. So we may request, or we will request all the platforms to put forth all the schemes that the board is going to give it to the gig workers, so they can see in the languages known to them. So the platforms and their portal itself will give all the schemes, eligibility criteria, everything. So, and also, since we are going to give a unique identification number to each and gig worker, he will have an option to log it, and then he will see what is the eligibility criteria, what are the schemes he is eligible for, and how much payout has been credited to his account. Because the way in which we are going to collect the welfare fee is based on the payout that he receives from the platforms. So if he has made 10 gigs in a day or 100 gigs in a month, so what is the payout and what is the contribution one person that we are telling would come to the board. So the gig worker is able to log in into the system and see what is the payout, what is the amount, how much of gig workers he has done, and how much the platform has paid, and then what would be the contribution and what would be the eligibility for the schemes that he can do. So everything would be digitalized. It is so easy because he is a bit digitally literate. So unlike the construction worker where they are not that literate, it becomes very difficult, as the sir was telling, to reach out the schemes and things like that. Yeah, thank you.
Are you clapping because you want the session to end? Is that why? Okay, we'll take one last question. And if there isn't, oh yes, there is. Please, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I am taking the privilege of having the mic myself to ask questions, so sorry for the abuse of power. My question is to the panel, to our esteemed guests, to ma'am. Regarding one, in continuation, that are there any validation protocols around the world that we can adopt as states, as countries? And secondly, regarding interoperability, sir was sharing that how it is being planned. interoperability not only in the states but also somewhat from in different countries, because now labor is not only restricted to states and it is going in other countries as well. Particularly, how is that practically possible? Like sir said that Maharashtra, in UP, if there's a benefit in Maharashtra and the labor from UP is in Maharashtra, they will be getting the benefit of Maharashtra. But schemes are not uniform. Maternity benefit in Maharashtra may be of 18,000, UP may be of 25,000, in Gujarat 50,000. So how is that financially possible? That is the second question that I have. Thank you so much.
You can have this one.
Maybe I can start? Yes. Okay. So touching upon the validation process, right? I think it also links to the previous questions, and then it's very interesting to see the balance between how easy it is to register and how important it is to validate. Absolutely, because if we don't have a good validation system, the social protection, social assistance, social security does not have a credibility, which creates the unfairness among the population. What if the validation system is not good and, okay, the person sitting next to you, to your right, is getting twice as much because the information they've given is not validated, and simply because it's not a good system to validate, you get a different amount. So that's not going to work, right? So just going to the question, I think the validation system is different in each country, but it really depends on the scheme. For example, if it's unemployment insurance, there's a scheme to check now. Are you fired? Which company? Do you have the document that you are fired? And then you are going to, for example, some countries have a training obligation between the jobs, then you get paid. So in that case, which training institution are you enrolled in? And all these documents are like minimum, right? Unemployment insurance, for example. For maternity, it's a little bit easier because you can't really fake maternity. But some of the occupational injury, etc., it is also difficult to validate in general, right? Usually the medical doctor, specialized doctor, has to certify this is caused, your injury or the disease is caused by your work, occupation based, right? So depends on the scheme, the validation system is different. And none of the validations, there's always a fraud, I have to say, but the objective is to have the minimum validation system for each categories of, I explained the sort of 9 branches of social security coverage, right? So, so that's all the governments are doing, actually. And touching upon the migration issue, yes, inter-migration, I think some of the discussions are very much focused on international and then also internal migration. Now let's talk about international migration. It will continue to happen. Okay, India, you have a large population, lots of different opportunities outside and inside. So what we are supporting, for example, there are social security agreements between bilateral agreement between 2 countries. For example, there's the destination country that you're going to, and then India, it's usually bilateral portability agreement. So when that agreement is finalized, then it's easier, you can operate within that theme, but if there isn't, then it's a bit more complicated. For internal migration, I think you have a lot of expertise in this room, but many states, many BOCW scheme and other benefits are for the residents of the states. Karnataka will register Karnataka residents, UP will register the same, so that process has to, in a way, reach the good coverage. So everyone is registered before they go on to the seasonal work or different work in different states. Without that, I think it's very difficult to track. But I was very impressed by all this transferring scheme that you have been discussing between the different occupation and different states. So I'm sure once we have much better data transfer within the country, we will have much better coverage, not missing certain population coverage, including migrant workers. Thank you.
I think we may not have a lot of time left, but may I just ask, because we've had actually one speaker who had to drop off for another meeting, but there is a 3-minute video that she wanted to share with us all. So perhaps we can ask for the video to be shown. And this is from Ms. Savita. She's Additional Labor Commissioner with the government of Chhattisgarh.
साथियों, मैं ये बताना चाहती हूँ कि वर्तमान में जो टेक्नोलॉजी के प्रयोग बढ़ रहे हैं उसका हम कैसे शासकीय कार्यों में रोज उपयोग कर सकते हैं, इस संबंध में मैं अपना सुझाव देना चाहूँगी। सर्वप्रथम तो जो हमारे 4 कोड आ रहे हैं, इन चारों कोड में हम चाहे वो निरीक्षण मॉड्यूल हो या नियोजकों से रिटर्न प्राप्त करना हो, अथवा हमें 4 कोड के पालन में जो भी कार्य करने हो, चाहे वो लाइसेंसिंग का हो, रजिस्ट्रेशन का हो, सारे कार्य हम ऑनलाइन सिस्टम से कर सकते हैं। टेक्नोलॉजी का प्रयोग करें, हम ऐप का निर्माण करें, वेबसाइट का निर्माण करें और उसके माध्यम से ही हम पूर्णतः टेक्नोलॉजी का उपयोग करते हुए ऑनलाइन कार्य करें, ताकि समय की बचत हो। वर्तमान टेक्नोलॉजी का उपयोग करने के कारण जो हमारे उपयोग करता है, जो हमारे हितग्राही हैं, चाहे वो नियोजक हो चाहे श्रमिक हो, उनको कहीं जाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है। वो अपने जहाँ वो रहते हैं उस स्थान से ही हमारे कानूनों का लाभ ले सकते हैं। साथ ही हम जब इंस्पेक्शन मॉड्यूल ऑनलाइन करते हैं तो उससे हमारे निरीक्षण की सटीकता में वृद्धि होगी, क्योंकि हम जिस स्थान का निरीक्षण कर रहे हैं हम वहाँ का फ़ोटो ले सकते हैं, उसको अपलोड कर सकते हैं। अगर किसी प्रकार की कोई दुर्घटना की स्थिति है तो वहाँ का भी हम फोटोग्राफ्स लेके उसको अपलोड करते हैं, तो उससे हमारे निरीक्षण की वैधता बढ़ेगी और हमें जब न्यायालय में कोई चीज़ सिद्ध करने की स्थिति आती है तो ये सभी हमारे साक्ष्य हमारे काम आएंगे। इसी तरह से जब हम श्रमिकों के कल्याण की बात करते हैं, श्रमिकों के लिए हमारे भारत सरकार के निर्देश पर विभिन्न प्रकार के मंडल बने हुए हैं और उसी तरह से माननीय सर्वोच्च न्यायालय के निर्देश पर भारत सरकार श्रम एवं रोजगार मंत्रालय के द्वारा ई श्रम पोर्टल का भी निर्माण किया गया है, जिसमें हम असंगठित क्षेत्र के श्रमिकों का पंजीयन करते हैं। और इसी तरह से जो है असंगठित कर्मकार कल्याण मंडल के द्वारा असंगठित श्रमिकों का एवं भवन निर्माण कर्मकार कल्याण मंडल द्वारा निर्माण श्रमिकों का पंजीयन होता है। तो इनके पंजीयन में एवं इनके कल्याणकारी योजनाओं के क्रियान्वयन में भी हम जो है टेक्नोलॉजी का उपयोग कर सकते हैं। और इसमें प्रयोग करने से ये कि जो दस्तावेज हम एक बार ले चुके हों, जैसा कि हमें इनके आवेदनों के पुनरावृत्ति को रोकने के लिए हम इनको एक यूनिक नंबर देते हैं और उस यूनिक नंबर के साथ साथ हम इनके वास्तविकता या ऑथेंटिसिटी के लिए हम इनके आधार नंबर लेते हैं और वो आधार नंबर ही हमारे गवाह होते हैं कि यह व्यक्ति बार बार रजिस्ट्रेशन तो नहीं करा रहा है अथवा एक योजना का जो है एक से अधिक बार लाभ तो नहीं ले रहा है। तो ऐसे में यदि हम एक बार आधार ले लिए हों और टेक्नोलॉजी का उपयोग कर रहे हैं तो हमें उसके उपयोग बार बार उसके मांगने की ज़रूरत नहीं है। उसी तरह से उसका जो पंजीयन है उसे भी हमें बार बार मांगने की ज़रूरत नहीं है। और यदि हमने आधार ले लिया और हमने उसका EKYC करा लिया है तो ऐसी स्थिति में अगर योजनाओं में हमें उससे राशि वितरित करना हो तो किसी प्रकार से हमें उसके बैंक अकाउंट नंबर आदि किसी की भी ज़रूरत नहीं होती, सीधे हम उसके खाते में DBT कर सकते हैं। तो इस तरह से हम टेक्नोलॉजी के उपयोग से तीव्र गति से श्रमिकों को योजनाओं का लाभ दे सकते हैं। उनके लिए जो भी कल्याणकारी योजनाएं संचालित हो रही है उसका अधिक से अधिक लोगों को लाभ दिला सकते हैं और दूरस्थ अंचल में भी जहाँ पर व्यक्ति नहीं पहुँच पाता है वहाँ पर भी हम हमारे कल्याणकारी योजनाओं को पहुँचा सकते हैं। साथियों, इसी संदर्भ में मैं आप लोगों को बताना चाहूँगी कि हमारे राज्य में श्रमेव जयते वेबसाइट है और उस ऐसे ही हमने श्रमेव जयते मोबाइल ऐप का भी निर्माण किया है। हमारे राज्य में मोबाइल ऐप के माध्यम से भी श्रमिकों का पंजीयन होता है, कल्याणकारी योजनाओं का क्रियान्वयन होता है और यदि श्रमिक चाहे तो हमारे वेबसाइट में जाकर भी वो अपना आवेदन पंजीयन का हो या योजना का आवेदन कर सकता है। तो मैं समझती हूँ कि अन्य राज्य भी इसका उपयोग कर सकते हैं। इसी तरह से हमारे राज्य में इंडस एक्शन के सहयोग से एलिजिबिलिटी इंजन का भी निर्माण किया गया है। इससे हम विभाग तो देखता ही है कि इस वर्ष किस किस योजना के लिए कितने श्रमिक पात्र हैं, उससे हमको बजटिंग की काफ़ी सुविधा हो जाती है। हमें बजट में कितने फंड की आवश्यकता होगी ये हम पूर्वानुमान लगा लेते हैं और जिलों को भी इसकी जानकारी दे देते हैं। साथ ही हमारे श्रमिक साथी भी इंडस एक साथी भी यह पता कर सकते हैं एलिजिबिलिटी इंजन के माध्यम से कि वो किस किस योजना की पात्रता रखते हैं, और उसके लिए हमने पात्रता के साथ साथ उसमें क्या क्या दस्तावेज लगेंगे यह भी उल्लेखित किया हुआ है। तो हमारे श्रमिक साथी जब ये पता लगा लेते हैं कि उन्हें किस किस प्रकार की योजना से लाभान्वित हो सकते हैं और उसके लिए उन्हें क्या क्या दस्तावेज की जरूरत होगी, तो उसके आधार पर वो ऑनलाइन आवेदन कर सकते हैं। उसके लिए उन्हें श्रम कार्यालय में या CSC में जाने की जरूरत नहीं है। तो इस तरह से श्रमिकों को जिस कारण से बार बार कार्यालय में या CSC के ऊपर निर्भरता रहती थी कि हमको ये लाभ मिल सकेगा कि नहीं मिल सकेगा, और मिलेगा तो हमको क्या क्या कागज़ लगेगा, और उनको कई बार घूमना पड़ता था और उनकी जो है प्रतिदिन की मजदूरी मार खाती थी। अब वो अपने घर बैठे मोबाइल ऐप के माध्यम से भी जो है एलिजिबिलिटी इंजन के माध्यम से अपने पात्रता की जांच कर सकते हैं और दस्तावेज के क्या क्या दस्तावेज है वो अब देख के आवेदन कर सकते हैं, जिससे उनके समय के साथ साथ मजदूरी आदि की भी बचत होती है। तो ये हमारे राज्य का नया वो है। मैं आप सभी को आप लोगों के वार्षिक कार्यक्रम के लिए बहुत बहुत बधाई और शुभकामनाएं देती हूँ। धन्यवाद।
I'll just do quick 30 to 40 second translation for our non-Hindi speaking audience. So Savita ma'am touched upon different aspects of use for technology that Chhattisgarh is actually using to register workers across different boards, be it BOCW and Organized Workers Board. She also touched upon how if under one scheme, if Aadhaar details are taken for a worker, that get linked to the bank account and direct benefit transfer DBT can be done to the worker's account, so that we don't have to again and again take the worker details. She also touched upon the Shramev Jayate app, the app launched for workers. The technology is able to reach where to the last mile citizen, where the human is also not able to reach. She actually touched upon with the app, with one click, the worker can now get registered over the app. Also, he or she can use an eligibility engine model, where if he or she is eligible for one scheme which requires 10 documents, out of it, if he or she has 8 documents, the app can nudge him to provide 2 more documents, so they can actually register for the same over the app. So yeah, this was a very short, not line by line, but a crisp what she said. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you. So I'm supposed to do a closing remarks, but I only have one thing to say. First of all, I want to thank everybody for their time and their sort of honest answers to some of the really challenging, I think, issues that India faces. So one of the particular things that I noticed about India when I started working on India for the past couple of years ago is this categorization. So there's always categories in terms of workers, in terms of the types of workers, in terms of, and I think this is helpful. Maybe perhaps it was helpful at a certain period of time. But I keep thinking of Gen Z, and I'm not unfortunately a Gen Z, but I'm sure there are a bunch of you here in the room. And one of the things that probably Gen Z will have in terms of their work life is that it's not going to be one job, one occupation for the rest of their lives, right? You probably will have people jumping around from gig work to construction work to an EPFO job to something else, and then to an entrepreneurship job or whatever it is. It will not be a linear type of career. So my thought for India is what happens for this generation if we still have categories or occupation-specific welfare boards? Can we imagine a life for Indian workers in the future where the benefits are completely portable, they're occupation agnostic, and what would that take? So for that, I wanted to thank everybody for their attention, and I leave you with that thought. I don't have the answer to it, but thank you very much.
Thank you to our panelists for the remarkable conversation. I request you please to accept the token of our appreciation. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Do we have a picture? We can go.
we move to the close of today's summit. We are grateful to all of you for your time, your candor, and your commitment. We now invite Kritika Sangnani, Chief of Staff at Indus Action, to deliver the closing remarks.
Hello, everyone. I think it has been an extremely energizing and inspiring day on all fronts, in all rooms that I've been a part of. And I think before I begin the closing remarks, I would actually want to start by what we had left undone at the beginning of the day, and I would request my colleagues to get it up and running for us on the screen.
India historically has had many progressive anti-poverty legislations, whether it's scholarships for your children, whether it's job security entitlements or health entitlements. But these are very complicated for citizens to access. For every program, they have to go through these burdensome steps to prove themselves, going to government offices, securing documents, or they face barriers because they are not literate or people are not fully aware of these entitlements. 80 to 90% of citizens do not get access on time or in full, especially for the most vulnerable families. The costs are huge. Indus Action's mission is to enable vulnerable families receive access to entitlements. To solve this problem, we looked at the life cycle of a typical vulnerable family in India, and we've identified 6 moments that have potential for pulling families back into significant poverty. The birth of a child, the entry of a child into school, entry into the workforce, job shocks, health shocks, and any shock that takes you out of a job permanently. We then match these moments to existing set of programs and entitlements. We want to make that process in accessing these most transformative entitlements less burdensome for every citizen and also every last mile case worker in India, and to really transform the interaction that a frontline state worker has with the citizen. It is a matter of the opportunity to pursue real social mobility and a life of dignity.
ये योजनाओं की पात्रता आप नौनिहाल के लिए फॉर्म डाल सकते हो। तो हम कम्युनिटी पे जब जाते थे तो हम आइडेंटिफाई करने की कोशिश करते थे कि कौन सी गैप्स आ रहे हैं रजिस्ट्रेशन में, क्या कोई एक्स्ट्रा बर्डन वाला कोई डॉक्यूमेंट तो नहीं है जिससे सिटीजन्स को ज़्यादा तकलीफ हो रही है, या प्रक्रिया को कैसे कम किया जा सके, इसमें टेक का इंटरवेंशन हम कैसे कर सकते हैं.
We then take to the government saying, this is our understanding of reality on the ground. We've built some trust with community workers and citizens, and here is what we've understood of this reality of this particular entitlement. We have the same vision for transforming the delivery of this particular entitlement, so let's work together. And that's when the government enlists us through a partnership.
जैसे ई-ऐप में जावे ना तो यहीं पर योजना के आवेदन है. देख
जब हमने स्टार्ट किया था तो श्रमिक को रजिस्टर्ड करने में 1 महीने 1.5 महीने का टाइम लगता था. विदिन हाफ एन आवर हमने उनको रजिस्टर्ड कराया और अब वो भोजन योजना के पात्र हो गए हैं.
तो हेल्थ बीमा भी होता है जो कि सरकार की तरफ से 1 लाख रुपए से लेकर के 5 लाख तक की राशि दी जाती है.
We select very carefully some of the most progressive entitlements like the right to education scholarships, which provide students the biggest chance at social mobility.
पूरा फॉर्म हो ही सब तो हमारा खुशी है कि हमारे बच्चे अच्छे स्कूल में जिस पढ़े बार.
It gives families the best shot to break free from the poverty trap that they're enmeshed in. The world Indus Action is trying to create is a world in which every citizen is protected and has the ability to transform their lives.
I'm seeing this possibly for the 5th or 6th time, and it still tears me up. Haven't been able to get over this moment. This is the culmination of 13 years of work that not just the team at Indus Action has put in, but every single partner that has worked with us is very much the protagonist of this story. And I think with that in the backdrop, when we actually set out to design this summit, we asked ourselves one question. What do we want people to feel when they walk out of this room today evening? Not to know, not to learn something new, but to actually feel. We wanted all of us to feel the weight of what is at stake and the possibility of what is within reach. I think today did that. This morning we opened with Kerala's proof point that zero extreme poverty is not a slogan. It is a systems design challenge, and systems can be designed. Not only that, you can get the Samaj, the Sarkar, and the Bazaar to rally behind a purposeful design. We heard from the architects of Aadhaar the real possibility of the burden of discovering an entitlement, proving eligibility, and actually receiving it, shifting from the citizen to the state. We talked about what a citizen-first approach means, about the kind of state capacity that cannot be downloaded or automated, but the kind that is built slowly through trust and respect. And this afternoon, we heard from the citizens themselves. Meenakshi, Indira, Lalitama, Saroj, Hemant, all of them, that what will it take for entitlement delivery to be on time, in full, and delivered with dignity. I want to thank each of you, our government partners from the Ministry of Labour and Employment, from Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Chhattisgarh, Uttar Pradesh, and Meghalaya. You all carry the weight of implementation, and you showed up today with honesty about what is hard and ambition about what is possible. Sarda ma'am for grounding us in the Kerala story and the reminder that political will is not abstract. It shows up in budget lines, it shows up on dashboards, and it definitely shows up in participatory implementation plans. Dr. Nadamani for the clarity that infrastructure, digital public infrastructure, is only as valuable as what it enables. Dr. Dalal Musa and Ms. Michiko Miyamoto from the World Bank and the ILO respectively for the global lens on India's labor challenge. Mekla for holding the space for the most human conversation of the day that tried to answer, how do we build trust between the citizen and the state? Something beyond the concepts of accountability and transparency. And our facilitators from the 30x bet roundtable that we had with all the donors in the room, from the Bazaar and the Samaj, facilitated by Gayatri Nair Lobo from Educate Girls and Vikram Bhatt from Scale, to hold space for a candid, deep, and fun conversation on the motivations, frustrations, and the need for investing in systems change. I also want to take a moment for the team, everyone who made today happen, the speakers you heard, the colleagues you bumped into in the corridors, the people who have spent weeks, honestly months, making sure that when we walked in this morning, everything was in place. You all are aware that Indus Action won the Skoll Social Innovation Award 2026 this year. It was really, really special. And you will see my voice break because it's a moment that we've all sort of manifested over and over, but not as an award or a recognition, but a representation of what it means for our citizens. One of the most resonating, resounding feedback that we've received as an organization from our various partners, whether it's donors, whether it's government stakeholders, whether it's supporters, academicians, scholars who've been working with us, associated with us for the longest time, is our relentless focus on the citizen. We call it citizen centricity, and that we bring in a really committed way, in a really dedicated way to everything that we do here. I honestly don't think that would have been possible without representatives from the community that are within our organization and constantly hold the mirror to us whenever we drift away from our lens or our microscope on the citizen. And I think I definitely want to call upon stage all our representatives from the community, our Phule Ambedkar fellows, fellows of the past, present. I please request you to all of you to please come up on stage. Harsh, Sakshi, Mayank, Naima, I'm able to spot a few of you, please. Nahid, Mansi, everyone, please. Big round of applause, please. I think more than anyone else in this room, I can do without the mic, I have a teacher's voice, that's what I've been told. This award actually, oh yeah, it's there. This award belongs to all of them. Big one, guys. I think our resolve, after especially all the invigorating conversations, all the inspiration that we are taking back from today, our resolve to making social protection systems count for every system, for every citizen and systems, are reinforced and strengthened more than ever. And with this, I bring this summit to a close. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.